which would be the prosecutor. This would be the defendant's initial appearance before a judicial officer after the accusation was filed. When I call your case, please remember that you have a right to remain silent. Anything that you choose to say during the course of these proceedings, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one of our attorneys from the Public Defender's Office will represent you, or an attorney from the conflict defense list. I will inform you of the accusation number that's been filed in your case, the charges that have been brought against you, to appoint counsel to represent you if necessary, as well as to set a bond if one has not been set. Please do remember your right to remain silent and your right to counsel. All right, who do we have first in courtroom 2?
Good afternoon, Judge Law. This is going to be position number 3, Ms. Danzy, and that's for Ms. McLeod.
All right. This is State versus Jasmine Danzy, 23 CR 003-914F. Ms. Danzy is accused of simple battery, domestic violence from June 19, 2023. Ms. Danzy, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Maureen McLeod. I'm sorry. Who's my pretrial officer?
Third arrest.
Mr. Howard. Okay.
2022 obstruction of fray, 2022 battery.
What was the disposition of the battery?
They didn't say.
All right. Is it?
I think it was out of Thomaston, Georgia, I think.
Thomaston, Georgia. Okay, got it. Thank you. Who's our ASG in this case, Mr. Walker? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. That is correct. She has 2 arrests out of Thomaston. From my understanding, they both are still open. In this case, on June 19th, law enforcement was dispatched to 230 Ted Turner Drive, which is the America's Mart. They spoke to the victim in this case, which is the defendant's boyfriend, Mr. Tyreek Clark. This was a verbal altercation surrounding something that was seen on his phone by the defendant, Ms. Danzy. There was surveillance footage at this scene, and the police officer was able to review it. It showed Mr. Clark walking away from Ms. Danzy, at which time the footage showed her punching him and throwing his phone at him. At that time, she was charged with simple battery family violence. We are asking for a $3,000 surety bond, a stay away from the victim's home, 271 Glen Hollow Lane in Decatur, and no further contact with the victim, Tyreek Clark, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. And of course, I would sound for the victim if he is on the line, and Mr. Tyreek Clark.
All right, Ms. McLeod.
Yes, Your Honor, good afternoon. My client is 18 years old. I understand that she has 2 arrests according to pretrial, but she has no convictions on her record. My client tells me that her boyfriend was actually the aggressor. He was the one who first attacked her, and she was simply defending herself. She tells me that he showed her a video of his ex-girlfriend on his telephone, and she was a bit upset. And, she was remonstrating with him as to why this particular Instagram, I believe, account was not one that he had shared with her, because it was a different account from the one that she knew that he had and that he had shared with her. And so they were arguing about it when he struck her. She tells me that although the police officers say that there was video of her attacking him, the incident had not started then. There was previous video, which they apparently did not see, but the incident had happened on a different floor where he had struck her. I would ask Your Honor to give my client a signature bond, since she has no conviction. She's 18 years old. She does not have a problem with no further contact with the alleged victim, Your Honor, and to stay away from the house, because she actually has an address in Thomaston, but she tells me that for work, she normally comes up on a Sunday and stays until Friday and goes back home. So she doesn't have any problem with no further contact with the alleged victim. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Bond is set at $1,000. It's a surety bond. No further contact with Tyreek Clark, to stay away from 271 Lynn. What was it? Lynn Hutton Lane in Decatur.
Ms. Grace has it.
All right. No illegal drugs, no weapons, and her next court date is going to be Miss Grace. that going to be in July?
7/6, yes, Judge.
All right, thank you. Her reset date is July 6th in courtroom via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Position number 10, Mr. Jackson.
This is State versus James Felton Jackson, 23 CR 003916D. Mr. Jackson has been accused of battery, family violence from a June 20th, 2023 incident. Mr. Jackson, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. McLeod. Mr. Howard, any priors?
10th arrest, last was in 2022. Simple assault, reckless endangering out of Philly. They got a couple of 2020 battery convictions and a 2018 probation failure to appear arrest.
I'm sorry, a couple of battery convictions in 2020?
Yeah, I thought that's what I saw. State, am I right on that?
Yeah, 2 batteries.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Correct, Judge.
All right, thank you. Mr. Eggers, good afternoon. What's your recommendation?
Yes, may it please the court. The state brought a charge of battery for an offense that occurred yesterday, June 20th. It occurred at 113 Windridge Drive, Sandy Springs. Mr. Jackson got into a verbal altercation with the victim. This altercation became physical when he picked her up and threw her. This left visible bruising and abrasions on the victim. The 2 parties had been sharing a residence for approximately 6 months. He has 8 cycles. We have 2 batteries, misdemeanor DUI, marijuana probation violation, no cooling off period. The state is requesting a $3,000 surety bond, stay away from the location, no contact with victim, no drugs, alcohol, weapons, an anger awareness class. And at this time, we would like to sound for the victim or Sean Bly if she's available.
Yes, I am available. I'm here.
All right, Ms. Bly, if you would like to address the court, you would need to start your video and I'll need to place you under oath. Would you like
Yes,
to address
ma'am.
the court?
I'm sorry.
Would you like to address the court?
Yes, ma'am, I would.
All right, need your video.
Okay. I'm trying to access my video. It's not allowing me to.
All right, then we're moving on. Ms. McLeod.
Okay, I'm right here, ma'am. I got it. I got it.
Ms. Bly, I will. All right, Ms. McLeod, go ahead while Ms. Bly tries to get her video on.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Host, could you please mute Ms. Bly? Thank you. Ms. McLeod?
Your Honor, my client is 34 years old.
Mhm.
I understand that the pretrial has said that he has some previous cycles, but in this case, he did not commit this act of battery or assault or any of the charges that the state has accused him of. What happened is that he and Miss Bly, the alleged victim, who's his girlfriend, and who I had the opportunity to speak with earlier, they were out together and they had a disagreement, and he left and came home by himself. And he was at the house. Apparently, she did not have a key and wanted to
Or
get
did not have a key. Okay, I'm sorry.
she
Okay.
didn't have a key to the apartment. So, and she couldn't get him on the phone. So she called the police so that they could initiate her getting access to the home. She denies that my client struck her or anything, or that they had any kind of physical altercation at all. I'm hoping she'll be able to put her video on so she can explain to the court what happened. She said it was the police officer who actually put his hand on her, that my client did not touch her at all, and she was feeling pretty upset about the fact. that she called the police for help and ended up being manhandled by the police, which she absolutely denies that my client placed his hand on her at all. She says that there's never been any kind of physical violence or anything like that between them, that they live together. She wants them to continue to live together, Your Honor. And my client also denies that he's putting, and he said he knows that he had some stuff, but that was long past, and he has never put his hand on his girlfriend, and she maintains the same, Your Honor.
All right.
That's the court.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Ms. Bly, I cannot acknowledge anything you're saying until I see your video.
Yes, ma'am, it won't allow me. It says your video is stopped. You guys are,
You can leave this.
okay, there we go.
Mm,
Can you send the request again?
I don't
It
know.
just finally sent me a request to do my video. Okay, here I am, ma'am.
Okay, good. All right, fine. Thank you. Please raise your right hand.
Okay,
Do you solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony you provide will be the truth, subject to the possibility of being convicted of perjury if you make a false statement?
yes, ma'am, I do.
All right. So I've got a sworn affidavit by a police officer, Tate Blank, over here, that was sworn to before a judge, a magistrate judge, on June 20th at
Yes,
10
ma'am.
a.m. This allegation occurred on June 20th at 9:33 a.m. What would
Yes,
you
ma'am.
like to tell me?
So yes, ma'am, as the representative just stated, we have never had any abuse situations in the past. And lastly, I only called the police to get me into my apartment. I did not have my cellular phone and no one was coming to the door, so I needed assistance to get in my apartment. That is all. And when I went to the bathroom, they charged in my house for one. Like, I feel traumatized. I did not call the police to get James arrested. I didn't even call the police. I had to ask my neighbor to call because I did not have my keys or cell phone. They charged into my apartment. And then when I questioned them for arresting him, the other officer grabbed my shoulder very aggressively. I'm currently with child, so I shouldn't have to deal with that in our apartment when I only made a call to access or be able to get access in my home because I didn't have my keys or my phone.
So if the police were to obtain a 911 recording of that phone call, they would only hear you asking for assistance to get a key to get into your apartment?
They won't even hear me, ma'am. I asked my neighbor to call the police because I needed to get in my apartment and didn't have my phone or keys. This has never happened before between me and
I'm
James.
sorry, you first said that you called the police to get assistance. Now it was your neighbor who called? Which one is it?
No, ma'am, my neighbor called. I asked. I did not have my phone or my keys. I did not have my phone or my keys. So if they listen in on the call, it's not me because I had to ask my neighbor to call. I did not have my phone or keys and could not get in my apartment.
And where was Mr. Jackson?
He was in the apartment, but he could not hear us knocking. So I'm not sure if he was asleep. But at the time when we came in, that's when the police just kind of charged in there when I went to use the bathroom. And when I tried to stop him and say, hey, I didn't want him arrested. I just wanted my keys and my phone. Then the other officer grabbed my shoulder. They were not there to arrest him for that reason. I just wanted my keys and my phone. And we had to wait on the actual leasing office to let us in the apartment. So I feel like the officers were frustrated and upset that they had to wait so long for someone to come to the door because he was asleep or he wasn't responding when we were knocking on the door. So then they charged in as soon as the leasing office gave me the key, and they charged in. And as I explained to them, that's not what I called you, or well, let me not state that, had you called for, because I had my neighbor call because I didn't have my phone or keys.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bly. All right,
Yes,
Mr. Evans,
ma'am.
I have a bizarrely different description in the warrant. Does the state have any input on this?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just give me a bit of time, if you don't mind.
I'll just chime in, Your Honor. Ms. Bly, did you not tell the officer that you were grabbed by the defendant?
Why, Mr. Walker, why don't you identify yourself
Hi,
first?
my name is Ian
Thank you.
Walker. I'm the supervising prosecutor here today. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So in the warrant, it says you told the officer that you were grabbed by the defendant. Is that incorrect?
That is incorrect. So when the officer first arrived, they were already frustrated because they couldn't get in my apartment. So he kept asking, where did that come from? Where did that come from? As I stated, on and on. I just needed to get in my apartment. And you can even hear the recording of the officer's mic. I asked them, why are you arresting him? I didn't call you guys for this. I did not call them for that. I just called them to get in my apartment.
You said the officer referred to that. Where did that come from? What was that the officer was referring to?
He was looking at a bump on my arm, but to be honest, there's no telling where it came from. He was just looking at how I don't know, he was looking at my arm, looking at my skin, and just trying to find something to have a reason to be there when outside, obviously, of what I called for, because I did not call for that. And then now I feel like a victim of the officer, because if I call a police officer to come to my home to let me in, you shouldn't be frustrated. Yeah, it took an hour and a half for maintenance to get to my apartments. I have no control over that, but you shouldn't be frustrated with having to wait. And then he even threatened to we should break down the door to get in. And the other officer explained, no, let's just wait on maintenance. So once they arrived, he was already frustrated and charged my home. I feel like a victim of the officer.
It's your testimony today under oath that you didn't tell the officer that you had a verbal altercation or a verbal disagreement with your boyfriend that turned physical. You never told the officer that?
I did, in fact, state to the officer in regards to the cab. We had this situation occurred in DeKalb County, which is outside of Sandy Springs. I explained that. He understood that. He still charged in my home and arrested him in Sandy Springs.
So
that was
did tell
not my
the
request for the officer.
So I understand that was not your request, but you did tell the officer you had been attacked by your boyfriend, though, correct?
No, I did not. I told him that we had a verbal altercation in DeKalb. That's what I explained to him.
And
Okay, I've heard enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Mhm. Thank
Bond
you,
is
sir.
set- bond
Thank
is
you,
set-
ma'am.
Bond is set at 3,000. It is a surety bond. No further contact with Sean Bly, and to stay away from the location at 1113 Windridge Drive in Sandy Springs, Florida.
Ma'am, I'm currently with
Miss Bly,
child.
Miss Bly,
Oh, sorry.
Miss Bly.
Yes, ma'am.
Your testimony is in direct contradiction to the sworn affidavit filed out by the officer. So I think we would need to have a preliminary hearing in which you appear, the officer appears, body cam, 911 call recordings and so forth are produced so that we will have an idea of what exactly transpired.
I will be filing a motion for a preliminary hearing.
That would be an excellent idea.
I
Okay,
will be doing that.
presently, the bond
Put your hands down. You have a right to remain silent, and I suggest that you exercise that right.
right now, Mr. Jackson's bond is set at $3,000. It's a surety bond. This is based not only on the allegations of the warrant, but also on his significant criminal record history and the fact that he has what's been described as a couple of battery cases from 2020. He's to have no further contact with Sean Bly. He may return to 1113 Windridge Drive in Sandy Springs if Ms. Sean Bly does not live there. I'm not certain because whether she lives there or whether she doesn't live there.
Both of our names are on the lease. Again, I'm with child.
Then he will have to find an alternative address. He can go there one time only with a police officer to retrieve his personal belongings. And then within 30 days of being released on bond, he would need to update the court with his new address. His next court date presently is going to be July 6th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sweetie for.
Position 8, Griggs.
Jason Griggs is 23 CR 003911D, accused of simple assault domestic violence from June 20th, 2023. Mr. Griggs, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Miss Maureen McLeod. Mr. Howard, any priors?
39 total,
I'm sorry, did you say 39 cycles?
39, yes.
All right,
Last was October 2022, probation. He got open DUI, possession of an open container. Driving improper erratic lane change, that's open in state court. Got an open battery DV, hindering person from making 911 call. It still has a 22 MAGC attached to it. On probation, 2 counts of possession of a firearm during the commission out of Gwinnett. In 2020, they gave him 5 years probation for that.
that's good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Howard. Miss Bickerstaff, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Judge Law. So this incident occurred yesterday at 365 Morning Dew Circle. And this is where Mr. David Arkin told officers that he and the defendant had been arguing about a cooking incident between them two that happened the previous day. And so Mr. Arkin went into his bedroom and he locked himself in. And that's when the defendant started banging on his door and yelling, and he yelled at him that he's not going to take his S anymore. And so then when Mr. Arkin didn't hear the defendant banging on the door anymore, he opened the door to peek to see if he had left, like what was going on. And then the defendant appeared at his door with a metal pole. He was holding the metal pole above his head as if he wanted to hit Mr. Arkin with it. And so after a few minutes of a scuffle of the defendant trying to get in the door, Mr. Arkin was able to shut the door to keep the defendant out. Mr. Arkin told officers that he did record some of the incident on his phone because he thought that the defendant was either going to kill him or beat him up. They do live in the same residence, and our office was able to speak to Mr. Arkin today, and he let us know that there has been a history between the two of them in which the defendant has gone in his room and stolen some of his tools and his money before. Mr. Arkin also let us know that he is in fear of the defendant because he is armed, and he describes the defendant as a felon. Additionally, Mr. Arkin did confirm the events that were listed in the warrant. So for all of these reasons, the state's recommendation is a $3,000 surety bond, 1-day anger awareness course, no further contact with Mr. Arkin, to stay away from 365 Morning Dew Circle, as well as no alcohol, drugs, or weapons while out on bond, and a one-time police escort so the defendant can gather his belongings. And if Mr. Arkin is on the Zoom call, I'd like to sound for him.
I am here.
All right, Mr. Arkin, we need your video on. All right, Mr. Arkin, did you want to make any comments?
I've got some additional evidence when that's needed.
Please raise your right hand.
Oh.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony provided will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, Your Honor.
This proceeding is not a trial. We're not seeking evidence in order to secure a conviction. We're just wanting to know whether you have any concerns about him coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a concern about like violence towards my guests. Like the girl was like crying and like terrified.
Do you
He
have
also
any
locked me.
Let me finish my sentence.
Sorry, ma'am.
Do you have any concerns about him returning to the same place where you live?
I do.
And why is that?
He seems slightly overly focused on me, even though I'm just minding my business. But hopefully, you know, I mean, if he does show up, you know, with the terms of the bond, I can just call the police and have him arrested, assuming he doesn't like shoot me before I do that.
Is this the Wilbank Street location? Is it, where do you live?
It's at that 365 Morning Dew Circle.
Morning Dew Circle, I'm sorry. Yeah, here it is. Okay, I did write that, Morningside, but I didn't put down the word dew. Okay. And how long has Mr. Griggs been living with you?
He lived here before I moved in last July. There've been like several incidences of like money disappearing from my wallet, various items disappearing. just random sabotage, just
just
mess
the
with
two?
I'm
me.
going to object to this
No,
line.
I'm not concerned. I'm just asking, is it just the two? Objection sustained. Mr. Arkin, is it just the two of you in that location?
No, there are several other renters and the homeowner.
All right. Were you the only one subject to this assault from?
No, so there was
20th?
also an incident on Saturday.
No,
There
no,
was a-
no, no. You need to listen to the question.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Were you the only individual subject to the assault on June 20th, 2023?
I was the one blocking the door to prevent him getting access to others who were in the room.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Arkin. Ms.
Thank you.
McLeod?
Yes, Your Honor, my client is 43 years old. He does not live at that particular location. The homeowner is his girlfriend, and he does visit quite frequently, but he has a completely different residence, which is in Beaufort, Georgia.
Okay. With the Wilbanks Court address that I just mentioned.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
He does not live there. He just visits frequently because the homeowner is his girlfriend.
I see.
I was able to speak with the homeowner, and she tells me that the complaining witness is a tenant of hers who she's been trying to evict for some time, and that my client, she just asked him to fix, the electricity was out, and she asked him to go to the basement to see what was going on with the electricity, and the complaining witness objected to that, and they got into an altercation. My client did not hit him or anything. My client had a flashlight in his hand, which he was going to use in the basement because the power was out. It's an exaggeration to say that that he attacked him or anything like that and forced his door open. That is a complete exaggeration based on what I was told by the homeowner herself. I believe there is a gentleman on the Zoom also, Your Honor, who was around at the time of the incident, who could speak to what happened, if the court would like to hear from him.
All right. Mr. William Thorne, I believe. Is that the gentleman?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Yes, ma'am, that's me.
All right. Raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
All right. What would you like to tell me? And I'm sorry, how are you related to this case?
I reside at the home, and so I've been witness to what's taken place.
You have been to the home? What
No,
do you
I reside there. That's where I live.
You live there. And who's your landlord?
Miss Christina Nichols, the same landlord that David Arkin has, and that is the boyfriend of the girlfriend of Mr. Griggs.
Okay. And is Miss I'm sorry, what was the name? Christina Robinson?
Christina Nichols.
Nichols, Christina Nichols.
She is the girlfriend of the defendant.
All right. And what would you like to tell me, Mr. Thorne?
Well, frankly, so Miss Nichols has been in the process of trying to get David evicted. And it's, as I'm sure you're aware, it's a drawn out process. It's not just a thing where you can like say, hey, you've got to leave. And ever since that's taken place, David, Mr. Arkin, the accuser in this case, has been intentionally doing things to like upset people. He almost set the house
Your
on
Honor,
fire
I'm
the
sorry.
other
I would
day.
object to Mr. Thorne's testimony today. He was not on the board.
Sustain. Mr. Thorne, I'm more interested in what you saw from the incident on June 20th.
What I saw was Mr. Griggs holding a flashlight because he had gone down to the basement to try and restore power. He went and calmly knocked on David's door and asked him for a key that David had taken, at which point David called the police.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
We
Mr.
have a video
Thank
that
you.
he actually
It's
has been
convenient.
turned-
Okay,
Doesn't
I'm
have
going to
videos.
I'm going to remove David Arkin and William Thorne from these proceedings. When I say thank you, that's complete. Oh, I'm done. Y'all don't testify. Simple as that. All right. Ms. McLeod, do you have a final say?
I do, Your Honor.
Mhm.
I would ask that the court not put a condition for my client to stay away from there. That's where this person lives. It's her home. I would also ask the court to consider setting a law bond for my client. I actually received an email from a lawyer in the Public Defender's Department who is representing my client in another matter, and she did kind of explain to me what was going on with his other case. And I am going to ask the court to consider lowering his bond because he really doesn't have a lot of money to pay the bond. I think what the complaining witness said was grossly exaggerated based on my discussions with the landlord herself, the landlady. She told me what had happened and we heard what Mr. Thorne had to say. This is just a case of a disgruntled tenant who really doesn't want to move, so he trumps up a charge against the boyfriend of his landlady. It's that simple, Your Honor.
All right, $500 surety bond. Next court date's July 26th. To stay away from 635 Morningside Dew Circle. No further violent contact with David Arkin. Girlfriend can go visit him. He can't visit girlfriend. Simple as that. Thank you. Unfortunately, with 39 cycles, it's very tough to give a signature bond at this
I
juncture.
understand, Your Honor. I understand, but I do appreciate the reduction that the court made. Thank you, Your Honor.
What was the bond amount?
500 surety, no further violent contact with David Arkin, and stay away from 635 Morningside Dew Circle. in
So
Atlanta, Georgia.
365.
Oh. 365 Morningside Dew Circle. Thank
And
you.
Your Honor, that concludes my business before the court today. May I be excused?
Yes, thank you very much. All right,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Thorne and Mr. Arkin, you're free to go. Next case, please, Deputy Francois.
This is going to be position 14, Mr. Johnson, and he also has the victim in the gallery and she wanted to speak.
Okay. This is State versus Prince Anthony Terrence Johnson, accused of battery domestic violence from February 17, 2023. Accusation number 23 CR 003919D. Mr. Johnson, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Tom White. And Mr. Howard?
This is 9th arrest. Last arrest was on the 13th of this month for failure to appear. Suspended license, false report of a crime, and obstruction. Clayton County.
Was the FDA in Clayton County? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
All right, thank you.
according to the bond assessment.
All right, thank you.
Uh,
Mr. Eggers?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This incident occurred February 17th of this year. It occurred at 201 Maury Avenue, Atlanta. Mr. Johnson and the victim were living together at the time of the incident. They share one child and he had custody of another. They got into an argument about how to discipline a child. It went outside into the stairwell and he pushed the victim down 5 steps of stairs, leaving cuts and bruises on the victim. The acute defendant has 10 cycles at just 24 years old. He has open warrant in Clayton for marijuana and no license, and he has open case for obstruction, marijuana, and no license. The state is asking for a $4,000 surety bond, stay away from incident location, no contact with victim, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, an anger awareness class. And at this time, the state would like to sound for Ivory Weaver if she's on the line.
Ivory Weaver?
She's here in the courtroom, Judge.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did say that. You did say that. Why don't we bring her forward then? You can put your hand down, sir.
Stand over here to the side.
Mr. White, did you want to hear from Ms. Weaver first, or did you want to counter argue the bond?
So we can listen to Ms. Weaver first.
All right.
Noise. stand by the chair.
All right, Ms. Ivory Weaver, if you'd like to raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
All right, and what would you like to tell us?
The night of the incident, when I pressed charges against Mr. Johnson, it was a lot going on that night.
What does a lot mean?
Like, it was just a lot of commotion. We was arguing, and he was trying to remove the TV. And once I settled down the next day, I thought that he pushed me. But I tripped over the cord, but I was upset at the time.
All right, and then? Anything else?
Oh, no, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to the the victim. I forgot what it was called, but yes, ma'am, the victim advocate. I tried to resolve the issue, but I couldn't get in contact with nobody.
All right. Mr. White or Mr. Eggers? Mr. White, did you have any questions to ask of Ms. Weaver?
I do. I just wanted to make sure we heard that correctly. You're saying that you were not pushed
No.
at all, is that? Okay, thank you.
Right, yes, sir.
And Mr. Eggers, did you have anything to ask of Ms. Weaver?
Well, yes, I do. Ms. Weaver, did you go down several steps of stairs that night, that day?
No, it wasn't a lot of stairs. It was just like going up my back doors stairs. So I was almost at the bottom when it happened.
Oh, okay. And why did you go down those steps?
We were petty arguing. I was trying to get the TV to bring it back inside the house.
I think she testified she tripped over the cord.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. White, I think that's what it says in the warrant with regards to the stairs. So, all right, anything else, Mr. Eggers?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Weaver. Francois, if you could escort Ms. Weaver back to the gallery, please.
Come on, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Mr. Johnson. As I previously indicated, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you choose to say, your statements can and will be used against you.
Don't say anything. Do not say anything at this point, Mr. Johnson. It's not going to help you.
All right, you may proceed, Mr. White.
Judge, if you're not willing to dismiss the case, we'd ask for a signature bond. You just heard the complaining witness say that there was no crime committed, that she tripped over the cord on her own due to no action of Mr. Johnson. So at the very least, we'd ask for a signature bond. I know that he does have some traffic issues in Clayton County. He just made bond on all of that, and he's short on cash. But he has a really good job. He works for AT&T as a tower technician, but he does support 8 children, and we're asking that he be allowed to be released on a signature bond so that he can get back to work and support those 8 children.
Maybe I'm the only one seeing this, but he has an open case with Judge Edline.
That's correct, Judge.
All right, and he's got a $6,000 cash bond for failure to appear.
That's correct. It's a 2017 case, Judge, and I have a feeling that there was some, based on at the time when those cases, and I don't know this for a fact, but a 2017 case at the time usually take a couple of years before it get to actual division.
Understood. But Mr. White, he has been previously arrested for an FTA. He made a new bond. The case was set for trial, and he still didn't show up. So I'm not going to attribute the delay of this case.
Judge, if I could finish, my point was that would bring us into COVID years, and we know about the confusion that COVID caused. People moved. There were lots of cases that got reset. People couldn't find out what was going on with their cases a lot of the times. So
Trial was in June of 2019. We had the shutdown in 2020. Mr. Johnson, again, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you choose to say, your statements will be used against you. You can choose to waive your right to remain silent, but your attorney won't like it.
And Judge, again, I would just like to point out the fact that there's not a crime here, as
All
the
right,
witness before court at this point shows that no crime was committed.
understood. Yes, Mr. Johnson, what would you like to tell us?
I would like to say that the case that you're referring to before, my mother is here, and they tried to get it dismissed. The judge told me that my mother spoke on behalf then, and they told her that the same situation as of now, and she said that they were going to dismiss the case. Therefore, I didn't know that I had court again. Therefore, I didn't know to come to court. So if I would have known to come to court, I would have came, but they never said anything to me. The judge told me to bring in my medication and bring in the things that she needed to bring in, and she did. And they told me that they were going to dismiss the case, ma'am, and that's where I thought that the case ended. And like he said, I had situations inside Clay County, which was tickets. And
Mr. Johnson, I highly recommend you don't say anything right now, because what you're telling me is totally different from what I'm reading on the case file.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Bond is set at 3,500. It is a surety bond. He's got a $6,000 cash bond with the bench warrant set in 17 CR 007-936D. His next court date is going to be July 6th. Ms. Grace, we're going to reset both cases for the SAP calendar, which is for this particular case as well as the 17 CR case. There is no indication of any notes to the file of a dismissal. It just indicates that he did not show up for trial on July 28th.
You have the actual case, Judge?
Yes, 17 CR.
No, look at the case number. I meant the actual case file.
No, I'm looking at the notes on the file, on the case, on Odyssey.
Oh, well,
There's no indication at all that there's a dismissal pending or has been reset or anything to that effect. All it shows is that he did not show up for trial, an arrest warrant was issued, and a bond forfeiture judgment calendar was scheduled for June 14, 2019, and he did not appear.
if he had assurances from the state that the case would be dismissed, that doesn't necessarily, it would not be an Odyssey. That would be an
Mr. White, I'm not speculating. I'm just telling you based on Odyssey, I have a jury trial calendar. It says failure to appear and an arrest warrant was issued. And right now on the bond schedule, he's got a $6,000 cash bond. Everything that he just told us is not reflected on Odyssey.
Judge, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not true, was my point.
Understood.
Because I was told by prosecutors in the courtroom that the case would be dismissed. Quite often that's not going to get in, that's not never going to get in there into Odyssey until it actually gets dismissed. They'll make a note.
Good thing you've got a date, July 6th, and we'll address it at that time. If y'all want to reach out to the prosecutors in Judge Edline's division, you can get those
And I'm
assurances.
sure they're the same ones from 6 years ago.
She's here.
All right.
I just want
And okay, let's.
I'm sorry.
Mr. White, look at Odyssey. Why don't you look at Odyssey? There's a flag right there from Judge Edline. Failure to appear, third FTA. And I'm going to read you the punctuation marks. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark.
Judge, I'm not disputing that there's an
Okay.
FTA. My point.
I'm very comfortable with the 3,500 surety and I'm moving on. Thank you. Next case, please.
Excuse me, Judge, can you give the conditions again?
No further contact with Ivory Weaver to stay away from the Maury Avenue location. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. And his next court date's July 6th, along with the other open case.
All right, we're done. Next, we have positions 12 and 13. Mrs. Jenkins.
Savannah Starr Jenkins is accused in two separate matters. First one is 23 CR 003917A, simple battery from September 3rd, 2021. The second matter is 23 CR 003918A, accused of giving false information to an officer from June 19, 2023. Ms. Jenkins, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Mr. Tom White. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Fourth arrest, got an open simple battery in state court. Ag assault, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, possession of a Schedule 1. That's 21 CP 202927. I think she got an FTA warrant too. That's it.
Right. Ms. Bickerstaff?
Yes, so position 12, for position 12, that occurred September 3rd, 2021 at Rubello's Pizza at 8420 Sonoya Road. And this is where the defendant threw a cup of water in Mr. Muhammad Islam's face after he told her to leave the business. This all started because she told Mr. Islam that she didn't like her food, so he refunded her food. I mean, not her food, but he refunded her money, and the defendant continued to argue with him. And so Mr. Islam told the defendant that he was going to call the police to have her escorted out of the restaurant. And so when she left the restaurant, he followed her to make sure that she left the business. And so then she returned and she threw a cup of water in his face. For that reason, the state's recommendation is a $3,000 surety bond, 1 day anger awareness, no further contact with Mr. Islam, and to stay away from Rubello's Pizza at 8420 Sonoya Road, as well as no alcohol, drugs, or weapons while out on bond. And so for position 13, that incident occurred June 19th, 2023 on Oakley Industrial Boulevard. And this is where officers were commencing a traffic stop that involved a driver and the defendant was the passenger in the car. And so when officers smelled marijuana in the car, and so they conducted a search of the car. And so that's why officers had the defendant get out of the car. And when officers asked the defendant what was her name, she told them that her name was Mariah Jackson, but her name is Savannah Jenkins. And when officers ran her in the system and they saw that that wasn't, she gave them a false name, they asked her again. And then she told officers that her name was Savannah Jenkins. So for those reasons, the state's recommendation is a $1,000 surety bond, as well as no alcohol, drugs, or weapons while out on bond. And if Mr. Muhammad Islam is on the Zoom call, I would like to sound for him.
Okay, Mr. White?
Yes, Judge. First, I'd like to point out the position 12 happened. We're coming up on 2 years ago now. And it is merely a cup of water. It's not like there was any injury. Also, with the false information, the officer, she did eventually give her correct information. We asked that she be allowed to sign her own bond. She has been homeless until the last year, but she has steady address now over the last year and is looking for employment. She has an elderly grandmother that was in a house fire and had to have a leg amputated. She's 80 years old and she helps take care of her. We're asking that she, with only 4 cycles, and it seemed pretty light, not serious for the most part, we'd ask that she be allowed to sign her own bond.
On the simple battery is going to be a $500 surety. On giving false information, it's going to be $1,000 surety. That's going to be a reset date of July 6th. Along with these 2 cases, we are also going to include the third case, 22 CR 001915A on the SAP calendar. So there should be 3 open cases with regards to Ms. Jenkins. She's got I think she's got a $1,500 surety bond on an arrest warrant, on a bench warrant. It's either 1,500 or 3,000. I think it's 3,000.
I see that she has a $3,000 surety bond for, what is this? Ag assault, possession of firearm, possession of Schedule 1 drug.
No,
Not that, okay.
no. I'm not sure. I mean, you can look up the criminal case, but the 3,000 doesn't apply to that. She has a $21,000 bond in the CP case.
Is that case holding her?
Yeah. That case is holding her. The bench warrant in the case I just mentioned, the one ending 22 CR 1915A.
So the CP case
The CP case, let me look it up.
is holding her because she just got arrested on the 19th.
I see a 21, no, that's not holding her. She had a $21,000 bond in that matter. I guess she made it back in, she made it 3 days later.
Okay.
No, I don't see that matter holding her. I do see the incident from October 2021 holding her. All right. Okay, that's a $1,500 surety bond on these 2 new cases, and then she's got the $1,500 surety bond from the bench warrant in the 1915A case. Her next court date is July 6th.
Judge, I'm
yes.
sorry, may you repeat the bond amount for position 12?
500 surety.
Okay, and are we gonna do no further contact with Mr. Islam and to stay away?
Yeah, stay away from the Rubello Pizza Place on Sonoya Road. And no contact with Muhammad Islam, no illegal drugs, no weapons, and no alcohol. And Ms. Grace, that will be a reset of these 3 cases.
I have it, Judge.
Thank you. Next case, please.
Position 20, Watson.
This is Yasmin Delise Watson, case number 23 CR 003925F. Ms. Watson's accused of criminal trespass from June 20th, 2023. Ms. Watson, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. White. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
No.
All right, Mr. Robinson, welcome. And what is the state's recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. Officer dispatched to the complaint of the person sleeping on the sidewalk. Officer then approaches the defendant, who then had her pants unbuttoned and immediately recognizes that the defendant was somebody that she's already given a criminal trespass warning to before. Officer gave the defendant a warning to not return to she tried to give her a warning and tried to let her leave and told her to not return to the Children's Park that's that's by the Centennial Children's Park.
Mm-hmm.
However, the defendant came back and she was caught sleeping, laying on the ground with her pants unbuttoned. For my recommendation, we're recommending 12 months probation, 1 day in jail, balance suspended.
Oh, no, that's a plea offer. I'm just asking for your bond recommendation.
Bond recommendation. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Stay $1,000 surety bond. Stay away from the incident location, 285 Andrew Young Boulevard. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Mr. White, do you know if your client is residentially challenged or not? I have a Marietta Street address.
She does say that that is her address, Judge. So I confirm that with her.
All right. Bond is going to be set at $1,000 signature bond through the jail to stay away from the Centennial Olympic Park at least 50 yards away from the Centennial Olympic Park. If she returns to that location, she'll be arrested again, and she may not receive a signature bond the next time. Thank you.
Position 15, Ms. Carlack.
This is Anna Jadwiga Karolek, accused of public drunk from June 20th, 2023, case number 23CR003920J. Ms. Karolek, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. White. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Third arrest, 2017 terrorist threats. That was dismissed. 2017 DUI.
And this position?
It didn't say.
All right, thank you. Mr. Eggers, what's your recommendation?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This occurred yesterday. It occurred at a neighborhood, Warm Springs subdivision, Roswell. Ms. Karolak banged loudly on several residential doors in that subdivision and screamed that she was a serial killer and demanded alcohol. When questioned by police, she admitted to having several drinks earlier that day, and an odor of alcohol was detected on her breath. She's had 3 arrests, 2 in Georgia, and 1 in New Jersey, but no convictions. The recommendation is a $2,000 surety bond. Stay away from the residences in that subdivision that she doesn't live in. No further contact with any of those residences, and no drugs, alcohol, or weapons while out on bond.
She lives in the subdivision. Her address is 126 Warm Springs Circle, Roswell, Georgia.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Eggers?
She can stay at where she lives, but not harass other people in the neighborhood.
I understand, but you said she doesn't live in the subdivision. She does live in the subdivision. Her last arrest was 6 years ago, DUI with no conviction, Judge. This is public drunk. We're asking for a signature bond. She is employed and she's a homeowner, with no mortgage. So she will not be, we won't be able to represent her after this hearing. She was actually called a private counsel. We were told that she was going to be represented by a private attorney, but he told her not to and to ask for us. So I talked to her a little late, but we're asking that she be allowed to sign her own bond.
1,500 signature bonds for pretrial services. She's to have no further violent contact with any of the neighbors at the Warm Springs subdivision. And she's not to go onto any of their properties unless they have the owner's consent. No alcohol and no illegal drugs. She will report to pretrial in person once a month and be subject to random screens for illegal drugs and alcohol. So Ms. Karolak, while you are out on bond and while this case is open and pending, you're not to consume any medication or alcohol. If you're subject to a random screen and you test positive, you could be rearrested again for violation of your pretrial bond.
Judge,
Yes, Mr. White?
you said any medication.
No illegal drugs and no alcohol.
Okay.
She can take any medication that she's prescribed. She can take any over-the-counter drugs that she's prescribed, that she feels she needs. But
Judge,
marijuana is still illegal in Georgia, in case nobody caught the news. Okay, so as far as I know.
thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Position 9, Hudson.
9. Jacob Hudson's accused of criminal trespass and public drunk from June 20th, 2023. And Mr. Hudson, your case number is 23CR 003915G. You've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Wills, is that you? Would that be you? I'm sorry, you're on mute.
I apologize, Ms. Wills. That was me on accident. That's my fault. I apologize.
Ms. Wills, could you unmute again, please? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yes,
Okay.
perfectly. Okay. All right. So, Ms. Wills, you're muted again. Was that deliberate?
Yes, I was waiting for the state to present their
Okay,
case.
just wanted to be sure. Thank you. All right, Mr. Howard, any priors on Mr. Hudson?
His fifth arrest, 2022 DWI, refused breath tests. Failed to yield out of Minnesota. He's on probation for that as of December 2017 domestic assault conviction. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Eggers?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. For the state has brought a charge of, well, 2 charges, criminal trespass and public drunk. It occurred yesterday. It was at a restaurant called the U Bar at 3515 Camp Creek Parkway, Atlanta. Mr. Hudson was at this bar and harassing patrons. He was visibly impaired with a strong alcohol odor and slowed movement. He was escorted out of the premises 2 different times and told not to come back. He came back a 3rd time. He was taken into custody. He then began to yell obscenities of a racist nature at patrons and security. Has convictions in Minnesota, and for that reason, the state is asking for a $2,000 surety bond on count 1, $1,000 surety bond on count 2, stay away from incident location, no drugs or alcohol or weapons, and an anger awareness class.
All right. Ms. Wills?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would object to that. Currently, Mr. Hudson's bond is set at $2,000, $1,000 per each charge. And he has informed me that he is unable to afford that bond. So I absolutely would object to the bond being raised as he is unable to afford the bond as it is currently set. My client is employed. He works in construction for induced sales. He will not qualify to be represented by the public defender's office. He has a high school diploma and 2 children. And again, we would be requesting that his bond be lowered.
And does he live in Minnesota?
He does, Your Honor. And he is currently here for work.
Okay.
Through his company.
On the public drunk at a U bar, it's going to be 500 surety. And the criminal trespass is $1,000 surety. Total bond is $1,500. It is a surety bond. And to stay away from the U Bar at 3515 Camp Creek Parkway, no alcohol and no illegal drugs. Thank you. Next court date is July 6th, unless he makes bond. If he does make bond, he needs to make sure that he keeps in contact with the court as to what his next court date is. Highly recommend that he retain counsel, perhaps local counsel, before he goes back to Minnesota. Thank you.
Position 7, Grant.
Mr. Rossdale Grant is accused of battery, domestic violence from June 20th, 2023. The case number is 23 CR 003910E. Mr. Grant, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Wills. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
This is 4th arrest. Last arrest was 08 suspended license.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Bickerstaff, what's the recommendation?
Yes, the recommendation for this case is a $3,000 surety bond, 1-day anger awareness course, no further contact with Mrs. Fanny Grant, to stay away from 7505 Bowhead Court in Fairburn, Georgia, as well as no alcohol, drugs, or weapons while out on bond. We're also asking for a one-time escort for the defendant to get his belongings But just briefly, Your Honor, this incident occurred yesterday at 7505 Bowhead Court. And this is where officers spoke to Ms. Fanny Grant, the defendant's wife, and they noted that she had swelling and lacerations to her right eye. She told the defendant that they were arguing and then things turned physical when he accused her of cheating, and then he punched her twice in the eye. I'm not the defendant, but Ms. Grant let us know that she was trying to leave after he punched her, and then he tackled her and he began attacking her. He continued to punch her and he tried to hit her head on the ground. Your Honor, the defendant did admit to slapping Ms. Grant. And our office was able to speak to Ms. Grant today. She let us know that they've been married for 5 years, but they've been together for 23 years. And they both live at that 7505 Bowhead address. Both of their names is on the deed. She also let us know that this is not the first time like the defendant has been aggressive with her or abusive to her. She let us know that his temperament has been becoming more aggressive, but this time she was afraid, and so she called the police. She did confirm the injuries, and she did confirm the events that were listed in the warrant, Your Honor. She let us know that she does not want any contact with the defendant, and she wants him to go to anger management and to stay away from their residence, Your Honor. So if Ms. Grant is on the Zoom call, I'd like to sound for her.
Ms. Grant? Fanny Grant?
I see her. I think she's muted.
I see a Lolita Grant. Is that Miss Fanny Grant? Yeah, as soon as you unmute, Ms. Grant.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, but perfect. Now it's perfect. Yes. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. What would you like to tell us?
Yes, I did. Just wanted to say that there were previous smaller incidents between Mr. Grant and I with this situation of that he's accusing me of cheating on him. However, Mr. Grant, he can return back to the residence because he works 2 jobs and, he needs to go to work. He doesn't have family here in Georgia. He is from Miami. However, if it means that I have to step away while he come in and do what he needs to do to be able to get from job to job, I don't have a problem with that.
Are you saying that you have an alternative place to stay?
I can find one. I mean, it's I realize that I know that we're not going to be able to cohabitate in the home. I just want to just say that I just know that we can't stay together.
Okay,
Yes.
that makes sense. Thank you.
May I?
You may.
Yes. Hey, hello, Ms. Grant. How you doing today?
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Ms. Grant, is it true that you talked to our victim witness advocate today?
Yes.
And is it true that you let her know that you and Mr. Grant's name is on the deed to the residence?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is it true that you told her that you would like for Mr. Grant to stay away from the residence?
Yes, I do. I do want him to stay away from the residence, I guess, until he can calm down. I don't know how long that takes. I don't know how this works, this system works. So I guess, I don't know if the anger management can help him, or he could stay until his next court date. He could stay away. I don't know how this works.
Okay. All right. That's all. Thank you, Ms. Grant.
Ms. Wills?
Just briefly, Ms. Grant, you indicated that you have somewhere else where you can stay.
I have a sister that lives here in Atlanta.
Okay, and would you be willing to stay with your sister?
The problem is with that, I could, but we're in the process of selling our home. I got so much going on and I'm trying to figure out how to do this.
Miss Grant, you will not have to leave your premises. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Willis, what's your bond recommendation?
My client is 54 years old. He has resided in the state of Georgia for the past 13 years. He does have 2 jobs, as it was previously stated. He is employed by Caterpillar as a forklift operator. He also is employed by Millennium Group as a courier. He will not qualify to be represented by the Public Defender's Office. He does have a high school diploma as well as some college. He does not have any children under the age of 18. And speaking with Mr. Grant, he did indicate that he has somewhere else where he can stay, and he understands and is willing to not have any further contact with Ms. Grant so long as he is on bond. We would request the one-time law enforcement escort so that he can get his things. And we would object to the anger management course at this time. And looking at the pretrial report, my client has 3 cycles and his last arrest is 2008. So I don't know if it's ripe at that point or at that time for that to be ordered. My request would be a signature bond, and if Your Honor is not so inclined, I would ask that his bond be no greater than $1,000.
Okay. Bond is set at $10,000. It is a signature bond through pretrial services. He can sign up for his bond, but he must comply with the following conditions. Otherwise, his bond will be revoked and converted to a surety bond or a cash bond. The first condition is no further contact with Fanny Grant. He's to stay 200 yards away from her. He's not to communicate with her in any way, form, or manner, including a third party, a phone, a computer device, in person, and so forth. He's to stay away from 7505 what was it again?
Bowhead.
Oh, Bowhead Lane in Fairburn, Georgia. He may return one time only with a police officer to retrieve his personal belongings. Within 30 days of being released, he must update the court with his new mailing address. And of course, it can't be within 200 yards of Bowhead Lane. While he's out on a signature bond, he's to report to pretrial once a month. He's not to consume any alcohol and no illegal drugs. He is to enroll in a domestic violence intervention program within 30 days of being released. So by his second visit to pretrial, he must notify pretrial that he has enrolled in a family violence intervention program. That is a 24-week counseling program, and Mr. Grant must attend each and every class at his expense. If he fails to enroll, he fails to oblige with the other conditions of the bond, his bond will be revoked and converted to a cash bond or surety bond. As I said, no illegal drugs, no alcohol, and he's not allowed to possess any firearms. Next court date will be sent to his new mailing address. Miss Fanny Grant, you may remain at that location and you may sell the property if you choose to do so in accordance with the law.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That'll be per judge.
Yes, sir.
Position,
Next case, please.
position 21, Mr. Webb. Put your mask up, Webb.
Quatuan, is that correct? Quatuan Webb is accused of criminal trespass in case 23 CR 003926B. Mr. Webb, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. White. This is from a June 20th, 2023 incident. Mr. Howard, any prize?
36 total. Last arrest was May 30th. Trespass, shoplifting. It's 23 CR 003443C. Got open trespass by itself, 23 CR 001674B. 2022 trespass, probation from 2015 to 16. He got open FTA on that booking sheet.
All right, thank you. Mr. Robinson, what is your bond recommendation for Mr. Webb?
Yes, Your Honor. Officer dispatched to the incident location. When he arrived, the manager advised that he's given the defendant a criminal trespass warning before on May 30th of this year. The defendant came back, however, when asked to leave, and when he got there, he decided to lay down in front of the main entrance and fall asleep for several minutes. Customers had to the customers had to step over him just to get in and out of the store. He's again, he's had multiple arrests, criminal trespass in 2022, a theft by shoplifting arrest in 2023, multiple criminal trespass of this year. And for bond recommendation, we're recommending a $2,000 signature bond. Stay away from the incident location. That's 556 Northside Drive, Southwest. No alcohol and drugs and awareness.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry, no alcohol, drugs, and weapons. My apologies, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Mr. White?
Judge, Mr. Webb is homeless. He's simply accused basically of being on property and falling asleep. We asked that he be allowed to sign his own bond and not be penalized for being homeless. He obviously cannot make any bond. So they were asking that he be allowed to sign his own bond. According to that one,
He's got a bench warrant as well from Judge Porter.
and basically being homeless would explain the FTA because he doesn't have an address.
He's got a $1,000 bench warrant holding him in 23 CR. I think it's 003. Sorry, 23 CR 001674B.
Okay, Judge.
I guess he's got the other open cases as well. Bond for this one is going to be a $500 surety bond to stay away from the Shell gas station at 556 Northside Drive in Southwest Atlanta. Next court date is July 6th. Ms. Grace, do you have the numbers of all these other open cases?
No, ma'am, but I can get them. Do you have them there with you now?
I have this one that was with Judge Porter, and this one is 23 CR 001674B.
I called out two of them, didn't I?
You did, and they're not showing, so the other one was 23 CR 003 443. Was it B as well?
I think so. Let me see.
That way we can put them all on the SAP calendar in case.
No, I got 23 CR 003 443C, 23 CR 001 674B.
674. Oh, that's the one I just gave Miss.
So is that a total of 3 cases?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next case, please.
Position 16, you're done, Mr. Webb. Position 16, Mr. O'Malley.
You mean O'Malley, Francois?
Yes.
O'Malley.
O'Malley.
Or is it O'Malley?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, I wasn't sure, but
Yes,
just want to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. Thomas O'Malley is 23 CR 003921A, accused of misdemeanor theft by shoplifting from February 21st, 2023. Mr. O'Malley, you have been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. White. Mr. Howard, any priors?
8th arrest. Last arrest was in December, failure to appear on probation, state court. 2 counts of shoplifting. It's 22 CR 005 766A. He had a couple of shoplifting arrests from last year and a 2010 robbery conviction.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, what's your bond recommendation for Mr. O'Malley?
Yes, Your Honor. This incident happened on 1723 Lakewood Avenue Southeast. Officer dispatched to the incident location, which is a Family Dollar store, regarding a theft by shoplifting. When he arrived, the manager advised the officer that the defendant had taken 4 umbrellas and about 2 bags of chips and walked out of the store past the sales point without paying. The manager advised that this comes after he's given the defendant a criminal trespass warning previously. He's had for convictions, he's had about 2 counts of, he's been convicted of 2 counts of robbery in 2011. He's been arrested for theft by shoplifting about 3 times of last year. He's had a probation violation in 2021. Your Honor, for bond recommendation, we're recommending a $3,000 surety bond. Stay away from 1723 Lakewood Avenue, Southeast Atlanta. No alcohol, drugs, and weapons, and an anti-theft course.
Mr. White?
Judge, the amount of total was $49.60. It'd be retail. If they arrested him at the scene, Dollar General would have gotten their property back. We'd ask to be allowed to sign his own bond. He's not going anywhere because of the probation hold. And maybe they can take care of the 2 things at the same time. But he obviously has no money to bond out. We're asking that he be allowed to sign his own bond.
All right. He's got a probation revocation matter. It's going to be before Judge Roth. In that particular case, a bond in this particular matter is going to be a $500 surety. But he's got that probation hold, so he won't be able to be released. I'm not sure, but his next court date is July 6th, and he needs to stay away from the Family Dollar store at 1723 Lakewood Avenue in Southwest Atlanta. Thank you.
Judge, how much was that?
500 surety.
Position number 19, Mr. Swan.
Delano Swan is accused of theft by taking from March 25th, 2023. The accusation number is 23 CR 003924J. Mr. Swan, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. White. And Mr. Howard, any priors, please?
16 total. 2019, he got FTA probation. 2017 and 15 probation FTA. And the booking stated he was homeless. That's it.
Mr. Robinson, what's your bond recommendation for Mr. Swan? I'm sorry, you're on mute, Mr. Robinson?
My apologies.
No problem.
This incident happened at 5600 Roswell Road, Atlanta, Georgia. The accused was at a Taco Mac applying for a new job. Security footage showed the defendant sitting in a booth next to a closet where the victim, Miss Shantiana Robinson, had placed a purse and items inside the closet. The defendant then gets up, enters the closet, retrieves the bag and its belongings, and places all of it into his backpack. The defendant does all of this before leaving the store. And Your Honor, I'm going to also note that there was also security footage that caught all of this. The defendant has about 16 total cycles. He's been arrested for theft by shoplifting in 2017, giving false name, address, or birthday to a law enforcement officer in 2019, a probation violation in 2019, and failure to appear for a fingerprintable charge in 2019. For the bond recommendation, Your Honor, we're recommending a $3,000 surety bond. Stay away from the Taco Mac that's located at 5600 Roswell Road. No further contact with Shantiana Robinson. No alcohol, drugs, and awareness. No alcohol, drugs, and weapons, sorry. And an anti-theft course. And at the time right now, Your Honor, I would like to sign for the victim, Miss Shantiana Robinson.
She is present. Miss Robinson.
Hello, how are y'all doing today?
Doing well, thank you. May I have your video on, please?
Yeah, it was on. I'm trying to figure out how to put it back on. Do you have any suggestions?
On the Zoom where it says stop video, you want to click.
Okay, there we go. Hello.
Hi. If you want to contribute, I need to place you under oath. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, I do.
All right. Ms. Robinson, did you retrieve your property?
No, I did not.
So you've not seen it since then?
No, if I may just speak on the experience that I had dealing with this. My car keys were inside of my purse. I had AirPods. The bag was valuable to me, being it was a gift for Christmas. It cost me about $1,300 to replace my car key. I was without transportation for a week. I did not feel safe. My keys had the apartments I lived at. I did not feel like I did have to pay to replace my fob for my gate, my keys for my home. I didn't get access to my apartment that day because the leasing office was closed. By the time I realized my bag was stolen, I came into work. He was there to, like he said, interview for a position. He saw where I put my bag. He followed me in shortly after, stole it, sat down, had an interview, and still left with my belongings, and then said goodbye to me as he was walking out. I feel violated, and I felt like I could no longer work at that location because there was no safety or no place for us to put our belongings that were lockable, or something that we could stop someone from just entering a dry closet that I don't know why he went in there anyway, but neither here nor there.
Miss Robinson, do you have documentation of all the items you had to replace?
Yes, ma'am. I have
Okay,
receipts for everything.
make sure you keep those receipts, and when the prosecutor calls you, make sure you have them readily available for them, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. If you could mute your screen, please. Mr. White?
Yes, Your Honor. They already made their recommendation. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was a $3,000 fee. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else same issue, but I'm having real issue with sound. It's in and out and wavy and sounds like a dream. Like
You're coming through very loud and clear for me. I haven't heard any audio issues yet.
no worries. All right, Judge. As you heard, Mr. Swan's last arrest was 4 years ago. I guess I couldn't quite get all of the testimony here. So he sat down for an interview and had the bag at the time and then
The allegation is that he apparently went there for an interview, and they have camera footage of him going into some kind of cupboard or closet, removing a bag, putting it in his backpack, resuming with the interview, and then saying goodbye to the alleged victim.
All right. Understood. Judge, it's been 4 or 5 years since his last arrest. He tells me he does have, he's recently gotten a good job. He's been at this job for over a year now. And he does take care of, he has 3 children, a newborn, well, 4-month-old, a 3-year-old, 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. He has family in the area, mom and an uncle, and he's been in the Atlanta area for 27 years. And he's asked that he be allowed to sign his own bond.
All right. Bond is set at $1,500. It is a surety bond. Next court date is July 6th, and he is to stay away from the Taco Mac restaurant at 5600 Roswell Road and have no contact with Shantiana Robinson. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons.
Thank you.
Next case, please, Deputy Francois.
Position 18, Smith.
This is State versus Lonnie Smith, accused of battery from March 26, 2023. Case number 23 CR 003-923G. Mr. Smith, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Mr. White. And Mr. White, how's the audio? Am I still coming to you like in a dreamlike state, or am I coming through clearer?
It's not as bad as it was, but it's a little in and out. But I'm following now.
Okay. And Mr. Howard, any priors, please, with Mr. Smith?
26 total. Last arrest was March 2022. Sale of marijuana, possession of drug-related objects, possession of a knife or a firearm during the commission, unlawful to come inside guard lines to deliver to inmate or controlled substance. Let's see. On probation for the possession with intent.
Okay.
We got a battery DV conviction 2019 simple battery DV conviction. That's it.
Both of them, battery and simple battery?
Both of them.
All right. Mr. Robinson, what's your bond recommendation for Lonnie Smith?
Yes, Your Honor. This incident happened at 3263 Donnelly Hollowell Parkway, Northwest Atlanta. The officer responded to a dispute with Ashley Williams, stating that the defendant had attacked her. She stated that she was talking to someone else at a BP gas station when the defendant saw her and told her to shut up and that he was going to beat her. After Ms. Williams and the defendant shared words, the defendant ran up to her and started striking her until a couple of people had to intervene and pull him off of her. The defendant then left the scene. As a result, the victim, Ashley Williams, was left with swelling to the side of her face and a busted lip, according to the affidavit. Your Honor, the defendant, he has multiple convictions and arrests that are similar to the one at hand. Convicted of simple battery in 2017, arrested for two counts of simple battery, family violence in 2019, simple battery in 2020, and a simple battery in 2021. For bond recommendation, we're recommending a $4,000 surety bond, no further contact with Ashley Williams, a one-day anger awareness course, and no alcohol, drugs, and weapons. And for right now, I would like to take this moment to sign for the victim, please, Your Honor.
All right, Miss Ashley Williams. All right, Mr. White.
Judge, Mr. Smith denies the accusations vehemently here. He has recently been shot in the face. He was a bystander of some other shooting. Apparently, it's made the news recently. I would not know. But he's asked that he be allowed to sign his own bond. I would point out that in the affidavit that the alleged victim does state that Miss Williams told him that if he wanted to fight a female, come do it. It sounds a little bit like mutual combat to me, Judge. So he's asking to be allowed to sign his own bond.
All right. Bond is set at 2,000. It is a surety bond. His next court date is July 6th. No further contact with Ashley Williams, and to stay 200 yards away from the BP gas station at 3263 Donnelly Hollowell Parkway. Thank you.
Position 17, Polk.
Mr. Kayon DeQuez Polk. Is that correct, Kayon? All right. Mr. Polk is accused of theft by taking and simple battery family violence from a June 20th, 2023 incident. The accusation number is 23 CR 3922C. Mr. Polk, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. White. Mr. Howard, any priors, please?
No, first.
All right. Mr. Eggers, any recommendation?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Polk is a very young person, 17 or 18. The offense occurred yesterday at 688 Spring Street, Atlanta. The victim is Cena Polk, his mother. There are two charges: theft by taking and simple battery. The facts are that the victim found that her son had taken a chair from her employer, Concentra Urgent Care. She was attempting to return the chair and loaded it into her vehicle. Mr. Polk came out and blocked her from entering the driver's side door of the chair, snatched away the key lanyard from around her neck and yelled, "You want to fight? I'm going to pick up that chair and bust your head." He then took the chair from the vehicle and threw it to the ground. our office has spoken with the victim, his mother, and she has said that there is, he has had a juvenile assault on her. He has hurt their
All right.
10-year-old sister.
Okay, hang on. Anything regarding juvenile court matters, it's not going to be discussed, so I'll sustain the objection. But other than that, he's got no adult arrests. Would that be correct, Mr. Eggers?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Mr. White?
Judge, he is 17 years old. This is his first arrest. We'd ask that he be allowed to sign his own bond. We'd also ask if it's possible to waive co-sign, because I think his mother is the only adult that he really has any or adult that would be able to get to the jail to co-sign for him. I told him that he would need to find another place to live likely after this incident, based on your ruling. And he says that he can do that. So, I mean, we'd prefer it being no further violent contact since he is so young, and stay and try to work it out with his mom. She can always call the police if there's another issue. No further violent contact does protect and allow it to be upgraded if he violates the judge's order. So we're asking that he be allowed to sign his own bond as it is his first arrest, and then allow his mom to co-sign for him if she's willing, and go back to the home.
All right. Does he have an alternative place to stay?
Yes, Your Honor. His mother says that he could be released to his grandmother and live with her.
And do we have an address for her? I don't need the address right now, but do we have an address that in Atlanta or in Georgia? No? I can find out from Miss Polk. She's on the Zoom. Miss Polk, if you'd like to unmute.
Yes.
All right. So your son is going to live with your mother?
It's my grandmother.
So he's going to live with his great grandmother?
Yes, it's a family home. It's two homes that my family own that's right beside each other. So my uncle is out there, another uncle, my aunt, my grandmother. Yeah.
And how
basically where in the family, when you don't have anywhere to stay, that's the home that everybody
and
will
do you
go
live
sit.
in that house?
Excuse me?
Do you live in that house?
No. I have my own home.
And how far is that from 688 Spring Street?
Spring Street is my job. My address
I'm sorry.
is
You don't have to tell me your address. You don't have to tell me your address. How far is one house from the other?
It's far. It will be I live in Atlanta and her house is in Douglas County.
In where?
Winston, Georgia, Douglas County.
All right. And are there any adult relatives who live there?
Yes.
Could you give me the name of one adult relative who can come down and co-sign his bond?
It would be my grandmother, but she don't drive to Atlanta. So I would.
Are there other adult? You said there were uncles and so forth living there.
Okay. Yeah, Frederick Polk.
Judge.
Yes, Mr. White.
I mean, I hate to limit it to this one person that lives. I mean, I'm not familiar. That sounds, I don't know the area at all. So that sounds like a long way away. Miss Polk could sign him, it doesn't mean he has to go back there.
No.
In reasoning, why is that not possible?
She's the victim. And your client has an alternative place. He's 17 years old. And whoever co-signs his bond, this 17-year-old is going to live with that person.
Okay.
Otherwise, I can do a surety bond and he's welcome to live with the friendly neighborhood jail staff at Price Street Jail.
We're fine with a co-signer. We just, My point was limiting it to one single person that may or may not be able to get up here to do it at any time
They
soon.
they will. And he will be released as soon as they do. Remain optimistic, Mr. White. I have no problem with that. All right. This is going to be Mr. Keon Polk. On the theft by taking, the bond is going to be 2,000. On the simple battery is going to be 2,000. That's a $4,000 signature bond through pretrial services. The co-signer is Frederick Polk. And Mr. Polk will, Miss Polk, you will probably need to let Frederick know that he needs to bring his driver's license to the jail, to a pretrial office to co-sign the bond before Keon can be released.
Okay.
And then Keon will need to report to pretrial once a month.
Judge, can you do that by phone considering the distance?
Any objection, Mr. Eggers?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, I'll allow for telephonic reporting. And Keon will need to, Keon and Mr. Frederick Polk will have to make sure that they update us with their current mailing address. I guess it was in, did you say Douglasville or Douglas County?
Douglas County.
Douglas County, okay. And that will be the new address for Keon Polk, and notice will be sent to that address. So if you have that address, Mrs. Polk, it will be helpful if you put that in the chat to, let's see, you'll see the word pretrial.
That go on the bond order.
Okay, in that case, put that in the chat to Melissa Grace, and I'm trying to see, Miss Grace, you're under which Zoom panel? Or is Holly Bridgewater doing this?
No, ma'am, it's Miss LM Melissa Grace.
All right, do you see that FC State Court Melissa Grace, Miss Polk? It's in the chat feature.
I'm looking.
Okay. Miss Grace, why don't you send a chat directly to Miss Keon Polk, and then she will respond to it. And we can mute Miss Polk, please. Thank you. All right, next case, please.
What you gonna do about the utility bill?
Yeah. I'm gonna waive it.
Judge, can you give me the conditions as well?
No further violent contact with his mom, who is Ivory, excuse me, not Ivory, Sina Polk, SINA Polk. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. And to stay away from Miss Polk's residence. And he's to continue with high school or make sure that he continues with ongoing GED program.
Next project.
Yeah. Next case, please.
Position 6, Goss.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the courtroom too?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And what about 11, Aaron James?
So let me tell you about him real quick.
Oh, Judge Law, I normally give all my announcements at the end, but.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
No problem. I was just curious. All right, position 6, we have Mr. Jamario Goss, accused of reckless conduct and discharge of a firearm on or near a public highway or street from February 23rd, 2023. Mr. Goss's case number is 23 CR 003-909J. And Mr. Goss, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Kelly Wills. Mr. Howard, any priors?
10. Arrest number 10. Last arrest was in March. Possession of a knife or a firearm during the commission. Suspended license. Possession of a controlled substance. That was out of Clayton County. So those charges are open. 2016 possession of cocaine, sale of marijuana, ag assault from 2011, burglary, possession of a firearm during the commission of terrorist threats conviction.
And when was this? 2011?
Correct.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Ms. Bickerstaff, what's the bond recommendation, please?
Yes, Your Honor, the bond recommendation is a $20,000 surety bond, $10,000 for each charge, and to stay away from Columbia at Mechanicsville Apartments, as well as no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, and no firearms while out on bond. Just briefly, Your Honor, this incident occurred February 23rd, 2023, at the Columbia at Mechanicsville Apartments, and this is where police were dispatched out there due to gunfire. They spoke to the security officer, Erica Johnson, who told them that a shootout had taken place and there was a man on foot, and then there were between a man on foot and people in a black Ford Taurus. Both of the parties were firing shots at each other. The man on foot was seen getting into a silver car, and officers reviewed surveillance footage and they saw the man firing several gunshots with a handgun. During this shootout, the leasing manager, her name is Pandora Brown, she was in her office, and one of the bullets came through the office window and it struck the wall. She had to take cover while this was going on. Officers were able to catch up with the defendant in Clayton County, where he was stopped, and officers found illegal drugs in his possession and a gun. The defendant told officers that he was visiting a woman in that apartment complex and that people in a black car just started shooting at him. And so he returned fire in self-defense. Our office did contact the leasing office, and the security officer, Ms. Johnson, and the leasing manager, Ms. Brown, they no longer work there, but we did speak to Mr. Herbert Shaw, and he said that he was familiar with the incident. He let us know that the apartment complex had fixed the window, but they had not fixed the wall yet from the bullet hitting the wall. He did say that the complex would like for the defendant to stay away from its location. And so that is why, for all these reasons, that's why the state's recommendation is the $20,000 surety bond.
Thank you. Ms. Mills?
Thank you, Your Honor. My client is 35 years old. He is a native of Georgia. He is employed by UPS as a truck loader, and he's been employed there for the past 3 months. He will not qualify to be represented by the Public Defender's Office. He has 2 children, one age 17. He has one biological child. He also helps take care of his godchild, who is 6 years old. Mr. Goss tells me that he has been incarcerated since last Friday. He was previously held at Clayton County Jail before being transferred to Fulton County. He does tell me that whatever took place, his actions were out of self-defense. I do believe a $20,000 bond would be a punitive bond, and my client cannot afford that. So it would be the equivalent to not granting him any bond. I would ask that Your Honor either grant my client a signature bond or a $2,000 bond.
Okay. Mr. Howard, could you confirm if he has a felony conviction on his record prior to February 2023?
Yes, and briefly, Your Honor, I would like to sound for Mr. Herbert Shaw if he's on the Zoom call. I'm not sure if he is. No.
He's not, but I am. I'm the regional manager. I'm here, and I was there as well.
Okay.
And if I should speak.
Yeah. All right.
I'm looking.
Okay, Ms. Hunter, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
All right, and you said you're the regional manager?
Yes, ma'am. I'm the regional manager, and I was there when this incident occurred. And by the grace of God, I just want to say, where the bullet came in through the window, it came in right above my leasing consultant's chair. She decided to get up and have some coffee, which she never does. But this day she did.
Understood. And I'm
glad she did. I'm glad she did, because this would be a different conversation we would be having today.
You mean she doesn't like coffee or she just decided to drink coffee that day?
She just decided to drink coffee that day.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Hunter. I appreciate that. Glad to hear she's good. Mr. Howard, anything else?
Let's see. What was the date you gave me?
Any felony convictions prior to February 2023?
Let me go to Odyssey real quick. I was looking at the history.
Ms. Bickerstaff, I saw one for something out of Clayton County, so I wasn't sure.
The Clayton County stuff is open.
Okay.
Hold on real quick. I'm going to cases right now.
Yeah, I'm looking as well.
Looking for that.
I don't see.
I see a
I
felony.
got an 11 SC case. Let's see. That was first offender guilty, convicted for ag assault, 2 counts, and burglary.
And the 2016 case?
The SC, 16 SC 147384, first offender. We got first offender for that.
All right, so they were both first offender?
It appears. Give me one moment. Hold on. They got a 05 SC. That was first offender too. So.
All right. Bond is set at $20,000, is $10,000 on each count. Next court date is July 6th. No further contact with Angela Hunter or any of the folks residing at the Columbia at Mechanicsville Apartments. He's to stay 500 yards away from that location. He's not to possess any weapons or any firearms, whether it's on his person, in his home, in his car, or in any vehicle that he occupies. He can't even be walking next to someone with a gun. And his next court date is going to be July 6th. Thank you.
Judge, what type of bond is it? It's a good bond?
Good bond.
Thank you. Position 5, Gordon.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Grace. Position 5, we have Derek Gordon, case 23 CR 3908C, accused of criminal trespass causing damage to property from October 30th, 2021. Mr. Gordon, you have been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Wills. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
This is 9th arrest. Last was in February, Stone Mountain, failed to appear.
All right.
Got an open case in the cab, theft by taking, false imprisonment, simple battery, theft by receiving.
Do we have an incident date for that case?
Which one?
The theft by receiving?
Oh, the simple battery. I have to look it up. I didn't type it out the date when I did the notes.
Okay. Ms. Bickerstaff, while we're waiting, any recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. So the state's recommendation is a $1,500 surety bond, 1-day anger awareness course, no further contact with Brittany Dean, and to stay away from 4555 Washington Road, as well as no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. Your Honor, this incident occurred October 30th at 4555 Washington Road. And this is where Ms. Dean told officers that her ex-boyfriend, the defendant, had been trying to get in contact with her for the last 3 days. He was like trying to contact her on her cell phone and social media. And then on this particular day, he came to her home unannounced and he broke her rear driver's side window of her car. Our office was able to speak to Ms. Dean. She let us know that they were together 2 years ago, but they're not together now and they don't have any children together. She did state that they have a domestic violence history in DeKalb and Fulton County. And then additionally, I saw a open simple assault case with the defendant. The case number is 22 CR 003665C. However, that was a different victim in that case. I don't see a bond was set, and it was the plea and arraignment date, it was reset. So he hasn't had that yet for that case. But anyways, Your Honor, Ms. Dean let us know, well, she confirmed what happened in the warrant, the events in the warrant, and she let us know that she is in fear of the defendant and she wants him to stay away from her home and she does not want any contact with him. She gave us, I'm assuming this is a new address. So let me, whenever you're ready, I can give you.
You can send that straight to Miss Grace.
Okay, I will.
We'll put in the bond order.
And she also would like restitution for her broken car window. She said that it was about $250.
Okay. And I do see Miss Brittany Dean on the Zoom. You have a right to not say anything. You have a right to say something. But if you decide to testify, you will need to appear by video. All right. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide would be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. And Ms. Bickerstaff has pretty much indicated what you want, that you don't want him to have any contact with you, to stay away from you, and you want
Correct.
restitution for $250. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, that's pretty much it. So that's a restraining order, correct? I don't want nothing to do with that.
The no further contact would be tantamount to a restraining protective order. And it will be part of the bond. If he violates the no further contact, and you just need to report that, and then these prosecutors will seek a motion, will file a motion to revoke his bond if he violates the no further contact. Yes. Anything else, Ms. Dean?
That's it.
All right, but you are free to file an application for a protective order with the Family Violence Division of Superior Court if you choose to do so.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you. Ms. Wills?
Thank you, Your Honor. My client is 29 years old. He is a native of Georgia. He is currently unemployed as he's been incarcerated for the past 5 months, and then was transferred to the Fulton County Jail. He states that he will be able to resume his employment as a warehouse worker if and when he is released. He does have a high school diploma, and he received that from Frank McClare High School. My client does deny the allegations as alleged. He states that these allegations were made after he no longer wanted to be romantically involved with the alleged victim in this case. He also denies knowing about the warrant. And this incident happened October 30th, 2021. My client states that he and the alleged victim have had communication and maintained communication since then, even though they have not spoken recently. They haven't spoken since since he was incarcerated, but they have been speaking up until this time. And so even though, I'm sorry, Ms. Dean stated that she was afraid, she hasn't taken any steps to take out a TPO for almost 2 years. And I also would object to any restitution being raised or ordered at this point, as my client has not been found guilty. I would ask for a signature bond. And if Your Honor is not so inclined, I would ask for a $500 bond, especially in light of how much time has passed. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bond is set at $1,000. It's a surety bond. No contact with Brittany Dean. He's to stay 200 yards away from Miss Dean and not communicate with her in person through a third party, through any kind of computer or phone device, and not even on social media. He's to stay away from her current address, which will be reflected in the bond order. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons and no firearms. His next court date will be July 6th. Thank you.
Position number 4, Mr. Gilmore.
This is State versus Austin Gilmore Joyner, hyphenated, accused of battery, domestic violence from June 20th, 2023. Mr. Gilmore, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Wills. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Fourth arrest, last was 2021 battery DV. It was reduced to simple battery DV conviction, and the 2012 battery dismissed.
Thank you. Ms. Bickerstaff?
Yes, Your Honor. So this incident occurred yesterday at 2170 Cheshire Bridge Road. And this is where Miss Noble Gilmore, the defendant's wife, told officers that she had spent the day, that her and the defendant spent the day together and everything was fine until he suddenly started talking to himself. And then he decided that he didn't want her in the house anymore. And so when Miss Gilmore was trying to get up from the couch, the defendant came and he started hitting her in the head and he pushed her. Officers noted that Miss Gilmore had a knot on her head from the defendant's, attacking her. And the defendant, however, the defendant told officers that Miss Gilmore was mad and is mad because they're getting a divorce and that she believes that he's talking to other women. Our office did speak to Ms. Gilmore today, and she let us know that the two of them have been married for about 5 years, but they don't have any children and they do not live together. She let us know that they do have a domestic violence history and that the last incident between them happened about 6 months ago where the police were called. Ms. Gilmore also confirmed all of the events in the warrant. And she stated that she did have a knot in her head and she went to Grady last night to make sure she was okay. Thankfully, she didn't have a concussion, but they did prescribe her pain medication. Additionally, Your Honor, Ms. Gilmore let us know that the defendant has anger issues and he gets upset and he goes off on her for no reason. And for these reasons, she let us know that she fears him and that she does not want any contact with him. And she wants him to stay away from her address. And I'll put that in the chat as well to Ms. Grace. So for all of those reasons, the state's recommendation is a $5,000 surety bond, 1-day anger awareness course, no further contact with Ms. Gilmore, and no alcohol, drugs, or weapons while out on bond, Your Honor. And I just want to point out to you that this defendant was convicted of simple battery family violence in 2022 in front of Judge Morrison. And upon that conviction, the orders were that he was to have no further violent contact with Ms. Gilmore and to attend abuse counseling. But here we are again in 2023 with violent contact with Ms. Gilmore. He also has an open battery case right now. Well, no, I take that back. I think this open battery case was the simple battery that got charged. So it's just a battery conviction.
It was the 7653?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all from the state. And if Ms. Gilmore, I'm sorry, if Ms. Gilmore is on the Zoom, I would like to sound for her.
Ms. Gilmore, Nobel Gilmore? All right, Ms. Wills?
Thank you, Your Honor. My client is 65 years old. He did confirm that he and his wife no longer share a residence. They have 2 separate residences. He has lived in the state of Georgia for the past 21 years. He does receive disability for his back, and that is his only source of income, and he will qualify to receive our representation. He does have a high school diploma as well as an associate's degree in business administration. He does state that these charges or false allegations were made and brought against him out of revenge. He does deny the allegations as alleged. I also would object to the hearsay statements that were presented as the alleged victim has failed to appear. She did not show for this hearing. My client only has 3 prior arrests, even though he's 65. I did hear some concerning information as far as him talking to himself, so I'm not sure if maybe something else might be going on, but I would ask for a signature bond. If Your Honor is not so inclined, I would ask for a $1,500 surety bond or a bond no greater than that. And he has no objection to not having any further contact with his wife, with whom he is separated from.
Bond is set at $5,000. It is a surety bond. Next court date is July 6th. No contact with Nobel Gilmore and to stay away from the marital residence. No alcohol, no drugs, no firearms. And if he is released on bond, he would need to do another set of domestic violence intervention program, and he must enroll in those classes within 30 days of being released. He will report to the Solicitor General's office and provide them with a notice that he's enrolled in those classes within 30 days of being released. Otherwise, that would be a violation of his bond.
What type of class, Judge?
DVIP, FBIT.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Gilmore, you pled guilty to a simple battery domestic violence charge that last June of 2022. You were originally charged with battery family violence. If that had been a battery family violence conviction, you would be looking at a felony charge right now. Do you understand? So you, that's why not only is your bond significant, because apparently you didn't get the memo from the last conviction. This involves the same victim, and the allegations are extremely serious. Thank you.
Position number 1, Mr. Abdul.
And this will be a pro se plea, Your Honor.
All right. What about position 2?
I received information that those charges were dismissed as to Mr. Bradley.
I have the non-pros, Judge.
All right, so position 2 is a null cross. Okay, this and has Mr. Rabbani already filled out paperwork and sent it to Miss Grace or to the state?
Yes, the paperwork is completed and
Okay. All right,
so
so
this
this is,
submitted to the case manager.
Yes, it would need to be sent to me, Mr. Walker, and I haven't received anything yet.
Okay.
all right. So let's proceed with the plea hearing, and while Mr. Walker forwards the documents. This is State versus Hafid Abdul Rabbani, accused of willful obstruction of an officer and violations of the rules regarding pedestrian and roadway from June 20th, 2023. The accusation number is 23 CR 003912B. Mr. Abdul Rabbani, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. You do have a right to counsel. If you cannot afford one could be appointed to represent you. But I understand that you want to take this plea, which means that you'll be pleading guilty to these misdemeanor charges, and those will be reflected on your criminal history record. Do you still want to waive your right to counsel? Did you read the document with regards to waiver of right to counsel?
Yes,
And did you understand it?
yes,
Do you understand that any legal decision you make, that you will be responsible on how it impacts your criminal history, that you will get a criminal history record because there will be convictions from this plea, that it may affect your residency if applicable, it may affect any other open cases you have against you, it may affect your job, any professional licenses, and the ability to get a professional license in the future. So are you prepared to plead guilty to the charges today? Mr. Abdul Rabbani, are you prepared to plead guilty to the charges today?
yes,
And are you prepared to move forward without the assistance of counsel?
yes.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that? If you have any questions about what I just asked you, you're free to ask me.
Yes, I have a question.
What is it?
If I plead guilty, will I be leaving today?
Are you pleading guilty just so that you can get out of jail? Miss Grace, I'm sorry, you're not on mute.
No, ma'am.
All right. Let me see. I just want to make sure you have no other open cases. Mr. Howard, is there an indication that he has any probation holds, bench warrants, or
I got first arrest, resident of California.
All right. Mr. Walker, do you agree with that?
That's my understanding, Your Honor.
All right.
And to further answer his question, it was a 1-day time served, balance suspended. So this case would not be holding him after today.
Okay. So, yeah, you will leave, you can go back to California, but you'll have a criminal history record of willful obstruction and violation of pedestrian rules.
Excuse me, Your Honor, I'm not going back to California. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay. Well, you've got a Moran Valley, California address, so I didn't know.
That's my mother's address. I'm currently homeless. I live from house to house, like different family members, so that's the only reason why I was selling water.
So,
I was
young man,
asked-
do you still want to plead guilty and get a criminal history record? Because right now your record is super clean.
No, man, I wanted to ask, could I get a signature bond?
All right. Ms. Wills, will you be representing Mr. Abdul Rabbani?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. We're not taking a plea at the present time. My gut feeling is that he's doing it just to get out of jail. So
That's fine, Your Honor. The state's recommendation for the bond is going to be $1,000 per count through pretrial services.
okay. He is currently homeless. So Mr. Abdul Rabbani, I'm going to give you $1,000 signature bond through the jail, which means that you don't have to report to pretrial, but it's your responsibility to make sure that you come back to court when summoned. Do you have an email address or a phone number?
Yes, ma'am. I don't have.
What's your email?
My email is K as in kangaroo, BNG dot FEEZE at Gmail.
If someone got that, can they put it in the chat, please? Because we couldn't understand what he said. Thank you, Ms. Wills.
Oh, I didn't get it. I was asking for the same thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to repeat it and see if everybody agrees with me, especially Mr. Abdul Rabbani. K as in kangaroo, B as in Bob, N Nancy, G Green, dot F Frank, EEZE at gmail.com. Is that correct, Mr. Rabbani?
Yes, ma'am. I'm putting it in the chat right now as instructed to me.
Okay, and what's a good number to reach you?
Ma'am, I currently don't have a phone number right now.
Okay. So that is the only email. You are responsible for making sure that you keep in contact with the public defender's office and find out when your next court date is. Oh, it's KVNG, not KB. KB. K Victor NG. All right.
Oh my God.
$1,000 signature bond through the jail. Your next court date will not be mailed out, so it will be very helpful if you eventually give us a good mailing address within the next 30 days after being released from jail. You will need to come down to 160 Pryor Street, the Fulton County State Court Clerk's office, and give us an address where you believe you can comfortably receive mail.
I have an address now, my grandfather's address.
That's somewhere where you check your mail?
Yes, ma'am. It's in Decatur, Georgia.
All right, are we ready for your address?
Yes, ma'am. It's 1296 Crescentwood Lane, Decatur, Georgia.
All right, make sure you check the mail and come back to court. Otherwise, another warrant will be issued for your arrest, and then you'll get another charge on your criminal history record.
Judge Law, did you want him to put that in the chat as well? His address?
Please. Yeah, sure. And what's grandfather's name?
Your address.
His name is Abdullah. Same middle name as me. Type the name.
All right, go ahead. Put all the information in. Okay, so that will be $1,000 signature bond through the jail. It's a $500 count on $500 bond on each count, and And he will be responsible for making sure that he checks with his mailbox at that address to get his next court date. All right, Francois, I'm ready for your.
Yes, I have a couple of announcements, Judge Law. So thanks to Ms. Blunt, she was able to catch that for one of the victims that's on the line right now. We do notice that Ms. Anisha Bradley is here for Mr. Richard Bradley, and his case has been dismissed.
Also, ma'am.
Just a minute.
Hold on 1 second.
All right. Next announcement.
For position 2, it's been dismissed.
Yeah.
Position 11 has been reset. They were actually on the calendar yesterday. They had a signature bond through pretrial. However, he did not want to sign, so they put him back on the calendar again. He didn't want to sign the pretrial.
Is the SAP date July 6th for his case?
He didn't have one because they gave him pre-trial yesterday.
Okay. We're going to put that case on the SAP calendar of July 6th. And if he signs the pretrial paperwork, then he can be released. Otherwise, we'll see him on July 6th. All right.
Judge Law.
That's it? Okay, Deputy Francois, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, you too. Thanks.
All right, attorneys.
Francois,
Go ahead.
I apologize.
Yes.
I apologize, Judge Law. We didn't get Mr. His address in the chat.
Oh, come back over here.
Okay. While y'all are doing that, I'm just going to go over the calendar.
Yeah.
Position 1 is $1,000 signature bond through the jail. Further notice. Position 2 is going to be null pros. Miss Anisha Bradley. Anisha Bradley. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Richard Bradley's case has been closed. You're free to go.
Okay, thank you.
Position 3, Jasmine Danzy is $1,000 surety bond, reset July 6th. Position 4 is a $5,000 surety bond, reset July 6th. 5 is $1,000 surety bond, July 6th. 6 is a $20,000 surety bond, reset July 6th. 7 is a $10,000 signature bond through pretrial, further notice. 8 is a $500 surety bond, reset July 6th. 9, Hudson's a $1,500 surety, reset July 6th. 10, Jackson is a $3,000 surety bond, reset July 6th. 11 is reset to SAP on July 6th at 9 a.m. Pending his release on his completed pretrial bond paperwork. Position 12, Jenkins is a $500 surety bond, along with the other case that we mentioned, reset to July 6th. 13, Jenkins is those were his two cases. So his total bond would be 500 on position 12 and 1,000 on position 13. Okay. Position 14, Johnson's a 3,500 surety bond, reset July 6th. 15 is a $1,500 signature bond through pretrial, subject to random screens. 16, further notice. 16, O'Malley is a $500 surety bond, reset July 6th. 17 is a $4,000 signature bond through pretrial, and that's going to be with a co-signer and telephonic reporting through pretrial. And hopefully we have his Douglas County address by now.
No, we don't, Judge.
Okay.
His mom got off after we spoke with her.
Well, hopefully Uncle Frederick will show up with the address. So
yes.
Okay. Lonnie Smith is a $2,000 surety bond, reset July 6th. 19 is a $1,500 surety bond, reset July 6th. 20, Watson's $1,000 signature bond through the jail for the notice. 21 Webb is a $500 surety bond, reset July 6th.
Did you get my
And
waiver? Did you get the waiver?
I'm going to sign it like in the next minute and a half.
Judge, can you give me that bond order on position 14 again?
14. Prince Johnson is 3,500 surety bond.
Thank you.
July 6th, yeah. Okay, any other questions? Mr. Walker, did I get all that right this time?
I think so.
All right. Miracles do happen occasionally, so. All right, folks, thank you very much. And I will see y'all on Friday, I think. No, I'll see y'all tomorrow for Orca. If anybody would like to join us.
On the SAP.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Okay.
okay. I'm sorry, I have a, you see this big guy? All right, guys, have a good day. Thank you.
Oh, I want to see him.
Oh, you do?
Yes, please.
I